5, 6, 7, 8. Good.
Good afternoon, everybody. Take a seat. Last November, we gathered here in the governor's reception room after the 2024 election. I talked about how we've been preparing for the possibility of a second Trump term since last February, scenario planning, and pressure testing. At that press conference, I made it clear that we would seek common ground with the new administration on areas of agreement. But I want to be very clear. While I will work with anyone, I will bow down to no one. And what I've seen over these past 6 weeks is worse than anything we could have anticipated. We have seen tens of thousands of layoffs. We have seen entire agencies practically shut down. We have seen chaos and uncertainty all across our state. At this point, we anticipate almost all probationary workers in the federal government either have been or likely will be laid off. And in Maryland alone, that amounts to around 10,000 people. People who have raised their hands to serve. People who have taken an oath to protect this country and its people, and people now whose livelihoods are on the line because of someone who was never willing to take that same oath. Last night, a federal judge ruled that many of these terminations are unlawful, and we are watching that case very closely. But I fear the arbitrary cuts and firings that we have seen over the last 6 weeks, that they are just the beginning. So here in Maryland, these draconian moves could lead to tens of thousands of jobs lost, hundreds of thousands of lives disrupted, and a cratering of tens of millions of dollars in income. Now, my background is I was a soldier. And I know that in the Army, they teach you that if you get attacked, you don't just sit there and take it. You mobilize. And in Maryland, this is our moment to mobilize. At a time when American patriots are being told that their services are no longer useful or welcomed, at a time when those charged with keeping our communities safe are now themselves under attack, at a time when Marylanders who help seniors receive their insulin are being fired, at a time when hardworking people who are performing essential tasks are being laid off in the name of efficiency, we are going to mobilize. And we cannot control the actions of the White House, but we can control on how we respond to the actions of the White House. And that's what we're here to talk about today. I've long said that this administration will lead, being mission first and people always. This moment is no different. Our top priority is to protect Marylanders, and that includes protecting those who are affected by these arbitrary cuts from Washington. And today, I am announcing 5 new steps that we are taking to protect our public servants, our communities, and our economy. The first, we are continuing to build out the Maryland Public Servants Resource website that we launched due to sudden federal layoffs. In just 2 weeks, more than 51,000 people have visited our website. 2 weeks, 51,000 people. And today, we are taking steps to ensure that we offer even more support for Marylanders who are looking for help. Our website now includes links to housing support, programs for veterans, local resources, state benefits, and information on nearly 130,000 job openings. So I encourage all Marylanders who have been affected by these federal cuts or have been affected or their family members have been affected. I encourage all Marylanders to go to response.maryland.gov/federal public servants. The second, we are launching a campaign to connect federal workers with jobs in education. Maryland is facing a severe teacher shortage, and we need to fill more classrooms with qualified teachers. So the Maryland Department of Education and the Maryland Higher Education Commission are working together to ensure that we meet this mission. We are going to be uplifting and highlighting resources that empower federal workers to pursue and obtain their education licensure. This approach will both support laid-off employees and close the educator shortage that we're having in the state of Maryland at the same time. And I encourage Marylanders who are interested in this opportunity to visit teach.maryland.gov. Third, we are moving in partnership with local and county leadership to host job fairs all across the state of Maryland. Partnership produces progress, and we are grateful for all of our state and our local partners who have raised their hands to support Marylanders in this time of need. These job fairs are designed to connect Marylanders with opportunities in both the public and the private sectors. And anyone who's interested in learning more about these local and county job fairs, please go to labor.maryland.gov/federal workers. Fourth, we are launching a push to recruit federal workers for open positions within our state government. One thing that I learned from serving in the military is that service isn't just a what. It oftentimes also comes with your why. Our federal employees, they want to continue serving. They want to continue leading. And these arbitrary firings that have come their way are not only unfair, they are impacting our national security, they're impacting our global competitiveness, they're impacting our way of life. And I want to make it as easy as possible for them to continue to serve and to serve the people of this state. So on March 7th, we will host a virtual information session about state jobs. That initial kickoff will be followed by a joint in-person job fair in Prince George's County and Baltimore City. We know there are tasks that our state has got to be responsible for when it comes to making sure that we're meeting the needs of every single Marylander. And we know there are roles that need to be supported and filled in order for that to be the case as well. And we're hopeful for the opportunity to have some of these federal workers, some of these public servants who can help fill those slots. And fifth, it isn't enough to recruit federal workers to serve in state government. We also need to develop internal processes to help them get hired quickly. And today, I have signed 3 memoranda to that end. I've directed our Department of Transportation to launch a program helping federal workers translate their professional experience into state employment, making sure that an understanding of their experience can then be read and processed when it comes to new job opportunities. I've also directed the Department of Budget and Management to make our hiring processes more efficient and more streamlined. When we have a need And we have our that can fill that need. Get it filled. Move quickly. And let's finish the job. And finally, I've directed our State Department of Education and our Higher Education Commission to identify additional opportunities for federal workers to explore a second career in teaching. These steps will improve our hiring practices and support the influx of job applications from federal workers that we anticipate coming this month and also, unfortunately, in the months to follow. These are the 5 big steps that Maryland is taking today. We're going to build out our online resources. We're going to connect federal workers with opportunities in education. We're going to move in partnership with local and county leaders to meet people where they are and make sure they're aware of the opportunities that are available. We're going to recruit federal workers into available state jobs. And we're going to update our processes to expedite hiring. Maryland is mobilizing. And we couldn't have gotten here without a big team. I want to thank the many members of our cabinet and members of the Moore-Miller administration who have been working countless hours over these days to make sure that we respond and respond accordingly and respond in a way that the people of this state need and are justified. I want to thank all of our local leadership for all of their work and their partnership in ensuring and honoring what we know is that the people who are closest to the challenges are often the ones who are closest to the solutions. We just need to make sure they're actually at the table. I want to thank our union and our labor leaders, the people who have not just sworn and done great work to protect their workers in good times, but making sure they're there to protect their workers in the tough times too. I want to thank the members of the General Assembly, including our representatives who are here today, who during this period and during this session, the impact of the federal workers in their individual districts have never left their minds and have never left their heart and has never left their work. And that includes people like Majority Leader Moon, Majority Whip Lewis, Senate President Pro Tem Augustine, and Senator Charles. I also want to thank Senator Katie Fry Hester, who I know couldn't make it here today but has been working hard on these issues as well. And I want to give a special shout out to the leader of our federal delegation, Senator Chris Van Hollen. Senator Van Hollen has been nonstop. And not just speaking truth to power, but in making sure that no Marylander is left behind. And we could not be more grateful to have a federal delegation like we have in the state of Maryland, and a federal delegation that is led by such an extraordinary leader and friend like Chris Van Hollen. That the Marylanders who are gathered here today in this room, we are gathered here to do the work. We are gathered here today to say we took an oath. We took an oath to defend the Constitution, to defend this state's laws, and to protect our people against all challenges. And that's exactly what we are going to do. Protect our people. But we know that we can't do it alone. We need everyone to help us mobilize in this moment. Our nonprofit partners who support those in need, I'm asking them to mobilize. Our private sector partners who always are looking for new talent. I'm telling you, you got a lot of talent in our federal workers here in the state of Maryland. I'm asking you to mobilize. To our grassroots leaders who want to support their communities, I'm asking you to mobilize. And yes, to our federal workers that have been unfairly laid off, I'm asking you to mobilize. I want to end by acknowledging some of the federal workers who are here with us today. the people who are here because they're sharing their amazing and remarkable stories, but frankly, people who I said when we had a chance to meet with them back here, I'm very glad to be with you. I just wish it was under better circumstances. I wish it wasn't our federal government is the reason that you're here today. We each had a chance to listen to their experiences. And I had a chance to speak to Madeline, who grew up in Ellicott City. And 10 months ago, she landed her dream job with the National Park Service, working at Fort McHenry to protect and preserve our state's history and our state's culture. On Valentine's Day, Madeline and 5 of her colleagues were fired via email without any warning. And maybe most offensively, we're told that the reason for her firing had something to do with her performance, which is the standard language that many of our people are getting. We heard from Darnice, who was a Marylander by choice. Her family moved here when she was 11 years old. Darnice has been working at the Department of Health and Human Services, helping manage large federal grants earmarked for building construction. She went to her computer and she tried to log on to her work accounts last Tuesday and realized she was locked out. When she tried to file a ticket with IT, that's when she was told, without warning nor justification, that she had been terminated. We heard from Eric. He's been at the Federal Office of Personnel Management for 25 years, born and raised in Baltimore. He's dedicated his career to recruiting and retaining other public servants around the country. He's a proud member of the American Federation of Government Employees. And by the way, I want to thank all of our AFG brothers and sisters who are here today. Thank you. Like Madeline and Darnice and many others, Eric was terminated suddenly and without cause. These are Marylanders who could have taken jobs anywhere. People could have made more money, had more time off, but people who believe in this country, and they believe in fighting for it, and they believe that everything about this country means we have to have people who are willing to sacrifice on its behalf. And they were the ones who were willing to raise their hand and do the work to make sure the communities were safe, to make sure that our homeland was protected, to make sure that our national parks could always be a great heirloom that we could pass off to a next generation, to make sure that seniors could get their drugs, to make sure that veterans could have their final resting place in dignity. These are people who our country is incomplete without their service. And they deserve the utmost respect. But instead, they have been villainized, they have been attacked, and this is not patriotism, this is cruelty. Cruelty. So I want to say to all Marylanders who are here today, I want to say to all Marylanders who have raised their hands to serve, I want to say to all Marylanders who understand that part of the beauty of spending time in this beautiful state, in this beautiful country, is we have an obligation to give a little something back to it. Your service matters, no matter what you're being told right now, particularly by people who have not sacrificed anything for this country. Your contributions have dignity. And it's a dignity we can and we will uplift. And Maryland is ready to mobilize. We will not sit back and be attacked. We will confront crisis with courage. And we will win. Maryland stands with our federal workers. And I'm honored to now have the opportunity to introduce one public servant, one true patriot, someone who defines what it means to sacrifice for this country, because he's raised his hand to be able to serve this country on multiple times. And I want to let him know that this state is now going to stand for you. I'm honored to turn the microphone over to Jonathan Hairston.
Thank you, Governor. And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jonathan Hairston, and I stand before you today not just as a public servant, but as a husband, a father, and as a veteran who has dedicated his life to service, both in uniform and for the federal government. But today, I stand before you as someone who was wrongfully dismissed, left questioning the very system I swore to uphold. On Friday, February the 14th, after hours, I received an email notifying me of my pending termination. And with the federal holiday on that Monday, my termination would go into effect at 5 p.m. on February the 18th, leaving me with virtually no opportunity to respond, seek clarity, or address any of the concerns that I had before my employment was abruptly ended. This was not just a professional blow, it was a personal one that's affected my family, my livelihood, and the trust that I had in a process that was supposed to be fair and transparent. I was dismissed with vague reasoning, riddled with factual errors about my position and my division, errors that make me question whether or not my case was even considered with the due diligence that each and every employee deserves. As an AI adoption specialist at CISA, my work was critical in ensuring the responsible and effective integration of artificial intelligence into our federal cybersecurity efforts. My works were directly contributing to the protection of our nation's infrastructure. So the weight of this decision does not just rest on me. My family and my children have watched me navigate through this storm, wondering how a man who's given so much to his country and his service could be cast aside without justification. This process has been cruel and it has been heartless. It's a betrayal not just for me, but of the values that we teach our next generation. Values that hard work, integrity, and dedication should be met with fairness and respect. But I refuse to let this define me. And I refuse to let it discourage others who are continuing to serve with honor. And to those facing similar challenges, I say this: keep fighting, speak truth, and hold the system accountable, not just for yourself, but for the future of public service. Amen. Because when we allow unjust actions to stand unchallenged, we set a dangerous precedent, one that erodes the trust in the very institutions meant to protect us. To Governor Moore, today we have had the opportunity to discuss the impact that this termination and others like it have had on the dedicated public service. And your leadership represents a beacon of hope for those of us that have been affected. And we ask for your continued support in ensuring that all employees, but especially your veterans and career professionals, that they're treated with the dignity that they deserve. And so in closing, no matter the challenge, I stand firm in my faith, in my service, and in my commitment to justice. And when I enlisted into the United States Army, I took an oath to protect and defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And while my uniform may have changed, my mission remains the same.
Amen.
I will continue to fight with purpose, because to fight for what is right is never fought alone. And we can restore the trust where it has been broken. I thank you all for your time, and may justice always prevail. At this time, I'd like to introduce Senator Wes Van Hollen.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for your service in the United States Army. Thank you for your service in the United States federal government at CISA. And we are all standing with you today to make sure that we right these wrongs and make sure that our patriotic federal employees can have the opportunity to move forward and support their families and continue to do work on behalf of the American people and to provide options, if necessary, the state of Maryland. But we are going to be fighting very hard. I want to thank Governor Moore. First of all, I should say, Governor, it's good to be out of Washington, D.C. It's good to get off of Capitol Hill. It's great to join you in the great city of Annapolis, and thank you for your leadership. And it's wonderful to be here as you mobilize Maryland to respond to this spree of lawless actions that we're seeing in the nation's capital and the huge disruption and damage it's doing to our country. It was great to join you when we mobilized together in the aftermath of the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore. We worked together, federal partners, state partners. We have the funding, we have the know-how, and we're going to make sure that we rebuild Key Bridge, just like we're going to make sure that we rescue our country at this moment of peril. So thank you for mobilizing. And thank you to your partners in the state legislature, who I know are working very closely with you to enact whatever legislation is necessary to support your efforts. And thank you all for not only being there to support these great patriots, these federal employees, in this moment of cruelty and unfair and illegal treatment, but also to recognize the incredible talents and skills that they have and be able to provide opportunities for them, but as you indicated, for those who are able and willing to step up in the state of Maryland at this moment to make sure that they can contribute to our great state, which you're leading so well. So thank you for outlining the measures that you cited here today. And to Jonathan and to all of our federal employees, thank you for your service to the country. Thank you for the good work that you do. You know, good work that goes on every day on behalf of the American people. At CISA, people don't see the good work you're doing until things go wrong.
That's right.
You're helping provide security, cybersecurity for critical infrastructure around the country. Again, until something goes wrong, people don't realize the good work that's been doing, but I'll tell you, when that good work stops, things will go wrong. And then, of course, we have, people in Baltimore, Social Security Administration, who are doing great work every day, delivering benefits to the American people. We have people at FDA and others around the country who are food safety inspectors, right? You only hear about something when things go wrong, while every day they're doing so much right for our country. The Federal Aviation Administration, all over the country. We just got the news today about 600 people, maybe more, at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in Silver Spring, Maryland. So these are people who work for the National Weather Service. They do many important things. But one of the things they do is provide the eyes and ears to America through our satellite systems, gathering data on extreme weather events. They're the people who warn people about hurricanes or tornadoes or tsunamis. They save lives, along with the other work that they do. So it's an absolute disgrace what's happening to those individuals. And of course, it's going to do great harm to everybody in the country who depends on those services. It's also part of a great lie, and Governor, thank you for mentioning that being a probationary employee has nothing to do with having done something wrong, right? You're a probationary employee when you're new to a position in government, or you could have been 15, 20 years in government and you're new to a job because you got promoted. So this is why they put out the big lie, right? Under federal law, we have due process protections for hardworking civil servants. You can be fired for misconduct or poor performance. So that's why these probationary employees, so many of them got these letters saying, sorry, your performance fell short. Well, turns out that immediately we had a flood of federal employees coming forth with their most recent evaluations that were glowing evaluations about their performance. So this is a big lie, and this is why you have so many court cases going on right now. And Governor, you mentioned one, there's another one before the Merit System Protection Board, but we're going to have to keep working on these cases. There are more than 60 filed across the country. And I will say a lot of district court judges in Maryland have been doing a good job issuing temporary restraining orders against much of this law-breaking. But this is not, and I want to stress this fact, and you alluded to it, Governor, this is not about making the government more efficient. This has nothing to do with efficiency. All of us work to try to make government work better for people at the best cost. That's not what this is about. If that's what it was about, you would not start by firing all the inspector generals in the federal government. I mean, these are the individuals who are independent watchdogs whose job it is to look out for waste, fraud, and abuse. So you wouldn't get rid of them if that was your mission. In fact, as you know, getting rid of them gets rid of the eyes and ears that hold people accountable. So that's an invitation to abuse and corruption. The other thing you wouldn't do if you were interested in efficiency is begin to put in place the second part of the plan, which is called Schedule F. Schedule F is a plan to replace 50 to 60,000 merit-based civil servants with political cronies. So to replace people who were hired based on their experience and their merit and their know-how with people who don't have any of that. It's not what they know, it's who they know. That's who they want to put in place. And that is also a recipe for inefficiency and corruption. So it is a moment that we do speak truth to the American people about what's happening. And I've said it before, I will say it again. In my view, this is the most corrupt bargain we've ever seen in American history. Elon Musk spent $280 million to elect Donald Trump. And Donald Trump gave him the keys to the Fed, making the government more efficient, as we just said. What it is about making the government work better for people like Elon Musk and other powerful special interests. That's what this is about. And that will come at the expense of the work that's done on behalf of all Americans. And we're also seeing them lay the groundwork, and they've been quite plain about this, to claim savings. Of course, their board keeps showing that they're not really making these savings because the government, while it can use reform, is not bloated like they say. But they're going to claim they want to take these savings to provide a big, big tax cut for very rich people like Elon Musk, again, at the expense of everybody else. Everyone else will end up paying for that. And I want to thank the governor and everybody here in Annapolis for rallying together at this important moment when we're witnessing this assault on checks and balances in the government, an assault on hardworking federal employees, which is an assault on services that benefit all of Americans. And I'm glad we're mobilizing here. In closing, I want to thank the other members of my federal team in Maryland. Senator Alsobrooks, who couldn't join us today, our House Democratic members. We had a hearing just this past week, the Maryland delegation, Democrats in the delegation, in the Mikulski room on Capitol Hill. She was proud. And we had as witnesses the leaders of many of the federal employee unions, and I want to thank all the unions who represent working people, public sector, private sector, the head of AFG, NTU, and others. and a group called Democracy Forward, which is doing good work. And we got an update on the battle in the court. We provided them an update in the battle in the Congress. And I will close with this. Because we need to come together, as the governor has brought us here today, to make sure that we do everything we can to win these battles in the court. When you have massive law breaking going on, the first line of defense are the courts. And we've been providing, my office has been providing these lawyers with important information about federal employees, their stories, for standing, passing on whistleblowers. We also need to fight in the Congress, and I think all of you know, I'm speaking here now as a member of the Democratic Party. You know, we're 47, 53, House, majority. We will do everything we can, but recognize at the end of the day, we also need the country to mobilize. So I want to thank the governor for helping mobilize Maryland. But people all over the country are recognizing and feeling this great betrayal. Because Donald Trump said on day one he was going to reduce prices. Prices are going up right now. But instead, what we're seeing is this other effort to rig federal agencies to do the bidding of very powerful interests. And so we have to mobilize that public opinion. And we have so many wonderful federal employees in Maryland, of course in Virginia and D.C., but 80% of federal employees live outside of that area. And they're like all of them. No, they're not Democrats or Republicans. These are people who go to work every day to make sure that, you know, the food is safe and veterans are cared for and all the other work they do. And so they're waking up and their neighbors are finding out that they're fired for no reason. And so people are getting understandably angry, and we need to mobilize around the country. Governor, thank you for mobilizing us here in the state of Maryland to respond to what I see as a clear and present danger.
Governor, we've heard from Republicans here in the State House saying that there should be a hiring freeze given Maryland's issues with its budget. Now you're talking about speeding up hiring for federal workers. Can you just talk about the differences that the two parties see on that?
No, I don't think there should be a difference in two parties. We need to make sure that we have a government that is efficient, effective, and accountable. And if there are spots that are available, if there are departments that need people to ensure that we don't have things like what we had in the past, which is people waiting 18 months for unemployment insurance, like we had the massive shortages like what we had in our Department of our DPSCS and our Department of Labor and our departments and our public safety officials, like we have the massive shortages that we had of local law enforcement. I think it's important to make sure that in places and spaces where there is a need, that we can then streamline people to be able to fill the need. And it's not about recasting someone else's government or hitting a certain number or hitting a certain quota. It's about making sure that we have a government that is efficient and that is reflective of the values of the people of this state. And I don't think that's a partisan belief. People want to make sure that you have an efficient government and an accountable government. And I would hope that both Democrats and Republicans can agree to that.
Governor, you've mentioned service, you've mentioned the military. I understand you have some thoughts on the trans ban being put in place.
Yeah, I mean, these are people, these are public servants. These are people who have raised their hands to serve and defend this country and who are willing to pay the highest price to be called American. People who are willing to do something that the vast majority of this country has not done and wouldn't consider doing. And so I just do not understand this assault on the military that we are seeing from this new administration. I don't understand the assault in the military when we're going after federal employees and forgetting about the fact that 1 in 3 federal employees is a military veteran. I don't understand the idea that we're going to go after benefits like food stamps without understanding that over 1 million military veterans rely on that. These are people who are willing to put on the uniform. People who are willing to put the flag of this country on their shoulder and willing to give their life on behalf of it if necessary. And so I think it's high time that we start paying attention and respecting all patriots. people who believe in this country, and stop trying to minimize the military by trying to divide the military.
Governor, you talked about not trying to hit specific numbers for state employment, but given, I guess, with current job openings and vacancies, and with, you're expecting thousands of unemployed Marylanders through federal government, I mean, how many people do you think the state agencies can take on as new employees in the next coming months?
Well, I think that's the process we're going through with all of our secretaries. Because, again, I'm not issuing a quota saying you must hire X or you must hire Y. I think it's a very individual process with all of our individual departments, because the number is going to be different, because the need is going to be different in all of our individual departments. But I can tell you that this is the moment when Maryland's going to get creative. That's why the announcement today wasn't just a call out to our state agencies and our departments. It was a call out to the private sector, saying we have some really talented people who I'm sure you want to know more about. It's a call out to our nonprofit organizations who are doing the work right now to serve and support the people of our state, who are saying there is a lot of talent and people who are true public servants and true patriots who are ready to do the work and who are ready to continue their mission. And so we're asking them to mobilize. It's a call out to our local leaders to say, if you have needs on the local side, that you have really talented people who are ready to continue to serve the people of this state, I'm asking you to mobilize as well. This mobilization is not about an individual agency or an individual vertical. This is Maryland mobilizing, and that's the call that we're making today.
Right. This question is for Senator Van Hollen. In regards to the decision made yesterday by a federal judge that these firings are likely unlawful, what does that mean right now for federal employees that are being fired maybe as we speak? And are these lawsuits just throwing sand in the gears, or do they have the potential to block these actions permanently?
Well, the short answer is they do have the potential to block these actions on an ongoing and ultimately permanent basis. The case by a federal district court judge yesterday in California applies to probationary employees in certain federal agencies. That case was brought upon on behalf of agencies. So the next step, of course, will be to enforce that judgment. I haven't yet seen whether or not the Trump administration will appeal. They've been appealing the past decisions, but that will then, hopefully the stay will remain in place, the stay on firing, while appeals are considered. There's also this other case, important case, that was brought by the Office of Special Counsel through the Merit System Protection Board on behalf of 6 representative probationary federal employees, with the intention of bringing that as a class action. And the Merit System Protection Board ruled that the firing of those 6 representative federal employees was illegal, did not go through the right process. So I do believe that when you look at these cases, they will provide the kind of safeguards and checks and balances that were intended to be put in place in order to protect a merit-based civil service against rampant politicization. Now, the ultimate question will come as to whether or not President Trump and their administration obey federal court orders. So far, they've stretched them. They've done some bobbing and weaving, but they haven't outright defied a court order. If that happens, when it happens, it's going to be very important that everybody recognize that another barrier has been crossed, and I really hope people from across party lines will come together, because if you knock out all the blocks of all the checks and balances, you really are talking about somebody who has absolute power, and that is not what our country was designed to be.
Governor, during this budget season and talk about should we hire, should we freeze, a lot of comparisons are being made to neighboring states. And I want to know if you have a reaction to Virginia's lieutenant governor saying, don't Maryland hire Virginia.
I hadn't paid attention to what she said. I'm too busy working to. No, listen, and I'm beyond. I'm too busy helping to drive historic drops in violence that we've seen over the past 2 years. I'm too busy helping to drive historic lows in unemployment that we've seen in the state of Maryland. I'm too busy making sure that our federal workers are protected and supported in a time of unnecessary need. I know Lieutenant Governor is running for governor. I would recommend that she actually focus on Virginia and not use her 15 minutes of fame focusing on Maryland. All right. Thanks, guys.
I was going to say,
That was good. Virginia.
I was going to say, I just met a couple of Virginians the other day who came over to Maryland. I like it here.
She should come too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Pleasure.